So let's sum this module up now. First of all, we had a brief refresher on how the web works. And in general, it looks like this. Client, so the browser, sends a request to the server does some magic, reaches out to a database, works with files, sends back a response, can be HTML, can be something different, and sends it back to the client, the browser, which then can display that. And that is the entire flow we also saw in this module. Now, Node.js is the part that runs on the server. And regarding its life cycle, there is one important concept, and that is that so-called event loop. Node.js code runs in a non-blocking way, which means we only register a bunch of callbacks and events, and Node.js will eventually trigger that code once a certain task is done, so that the JavaScript thread is always free to handle new events, new incoming requests, and stuff like that. A Node program can exit if there is no more work to do, but on a server this, should at least never happen, because create server registers an event listener for an event which is never done. If a new event is triggered, so if a new request is received, this does not mean that Node unregisters the event listener. Instead, we keep on listening for more requests, and that is of course how a server should behave. So it's this cycle that's important to understand, and that we have this loop which always keeps on going, keeps on waiting for new events, and which does something when some event happens, and then basically dispatches some actions to the operating system, you could say, for example, and then again frees up the thread. Now, this also involves a lot of asynchronous code, which we saw with all the callbacks. The JavaScript code should be non-blocking, so we have this callback and event-driven approach where we are able to register some code to be executed in the future instead of running right away and blocking the main thread, because this has to be avoided under all circumstances, and Node.js is built around that concept of avoiding this issue. We also saw how to work with requests and responses the Node.js way. We saw that we have to parse the request data, which arrives in chunks, and that we can use this concept of streams and buffers, which I explained, and that we should avoid sending double responses, so that after res end, you must not send another response. And this can happen easily if you forget about that asynchronous nature and that a line of code you write might not execute immediately. So depending on where you write it, if it's in an event listener, it will not execute immediately. That is what I mean, and that is what is important to keep in mind here. We also learned that Node.js is all about using its built-in functionalities. And whilst there are some global variables or objects or functions we can use, this also means that we should use its core modules. Core modules are things like the HTTP, the FS, or the path module. There are more, and you can learn all about them in the official Node.js docs, of course. We'll also use quite a lot of them throughout this course. And these core modules give us a couple of different functionalities that allow us to basically do whatever we ever could want to do on a server, like create a new server with the help of the HTTP module. They're imported via the require syntax, and we can only use them in the file into which we import them. And if we want to use them in two different files, we have to import them in both files separately. Now that leads us to the Node module system, and this basically works with the help of this require keyword, which pulls some functionality from one of our files if we start with / or ./, or from a core or third-party module. We haven't used any third-party modules thus far, but we'll also do that soon. And it basically pulls in whatever we export there and stores it in a new variable or constant, as we did it in this module. And export is an important keyword here. We do export with the help of module.exports, or for multiple exports with the exports shortcut I showed you in the last lectures. So this is what we learned in this module. And I know that this was a lot of theory or nitty-gritty stuff about Node.js. Doesn't look too easy and beautiful, but it'll get way more beautiful from now on It is super important to never forget what Node.js is and does for you though, because many courses right away start with Express.js, which we'll also use starting soon, and therefore you never really learn what's happening under the hood, which is sad because this is important and makes you a better Node developer. But with that, let's move on.